Everyone at school mocked me for my anxiety disorder, not knowing I'm a published author with a genius IQ. I sat in the back row of my economics seminar trying to make myself invisible while the professor lectured about my book, the one I'd published under a pseudonym 2 years ago while in a refugee camp, about how economies rebuild after total collapse. Nobody here knew I was the author. I just looked like a freaked out kid because my anxiety medication wasn't working and the lights felt too bright, reminding me of when my village burned down. Professor Mitchell noticed my shaking hands and announced to the class, "Looks like someone forgot to take their crazy pills this morning. This is what happens when admissions lets in charity cases who can't handle academic pressure." The entire lecture hall turned to stare at me while I tried to steady my breathing. Maybe you should go to the counseling center instead of wasting everyone's time here. Actually, maybe you should just go back to whatever bombed out country you crawled from. I stayed in my seat, focusing on my notes, but my hand was shaking too badly to write clearly. A student in the front row, wearing a designer suit, turned around and said, "He probably can't even understand the lectures. They really lower standards for refugees, don't they? My father says they let them in to make the school look compassionate, not because they can actually learn." Another student added, "He's probably illiterate in his own language too. These people come from places without real schools." When I asked a clarifying question about the material, Professor Mitchell rolled his eyes. "Can someone translate to whatever language he actually speaks? These international diversity admits never have the foundation for real academic work." He wrote my question on the board in deliberately broken English, adding random grammatical errors. "This is how you sound to us, like a child trying to speak. Maybe if your people had schools instead of wars, you could communicate properly." During the break, students surrounded my desk, and one poured coffee on my textbook, then on my notes, then grabbed my laptop and poured it there too. "Oops, but you probably stole this stuff anyway. Which war zone are you from? The one where they rape everyone, or the one where they eat people?" They laughed while another said, "He's probably a terrorist. That's why he shakes. Guilty conscience from bombing civilians." When I had a panic attack triggered by someone slamming a door, the whole class started deliberately making loud noises. They slammed books, popped chip bags, and one even played actual war footage on his phone at full volume. "Look, he's crying. The big tough refugee is pissing himself over some noises." Someone took a photo of me curled up shaking. Professor Mitchell didn't stop them, instead saying, "If you can't handle normal classroom sounds, you belong in an asylum, not a university." A girl pretended to be sympathetic but said loudly, "It's not his fault his whole family died and his brain is broken. Some people just aren't meant for civilization. He should be in a psychiatric ward, not taking spots from real humans." She grabbed my face and forced me to look at her. "Poor thing. You tried so hard to pretend you're people, but we can all see you're just a damaged animal." Professor Mitchell assigned group work and announced, "Nobody has to work with him. I won't penalize you for excluding someone who'll drag down your grades. His mental illness might be contagious." Every group rejected me while he watched approvingly. "This is preparing you for the real world. No employer wants someone who might go on a shooting spree. That's what these war people do." When I submitted my paper early, Professor Mitchell held it up and ripped it in half without reading it, then spit on the pieces. "I'm not wasting time grading work from someone who shouldn't be here." He threw the wet pieces at my face. "Your dead family would be ashamed you're wasting this opportunity." The guest speaker arrived, and Professor Mitchell introduced him as the renowned economist whose life was changed by a revolutionary book. As the speaker began, a student grabbed my hair and cut off a chunk with scissors. "For my collection of subhuman samples," he said. Professor Mitchell saw but smiled. Another student said, "After this, you'll finally unalive yourself and stop contaminating our classroom with your mental illness. Do the world a favor." The whole class applauded. The guest speaker was mid-sentence when he suddenly stopped, staring directly at me. "Oh my God," he said, his voice shaking. "You're him. You're the author. I recognize you from the refugee camp documentation." He pushed past students, tears in his eyes. "This is the genius who wrote the book that revolutionized my entire understanding of economics. This young man, who you've been torturing, created the framework that's now being implemented by the World Bank." Professor Mitchell's face went white as the guest speaker reached me and said, "Your book saved my career and changed how we approach post-conflict economics globally." Full story on the channel below.